Hey everybody, what's up? Welcome to the latest episode of the Rich and Turbo Heavy Half Hour. You just get rich tonight here from frigid Florida, which is a weird thing to say. I'm freezing my ass off.
Yep.
But you can find me on all the socials at Rich.Paiva as a Doom Charts contributor doing reviews from UCPD of Metal, and also now as a Tampa Doom and Gloom Fest 3 sponsor, which is very cool and very exciting. More on that later. I'm very excited to have and I want to say another Portland band because an embarrassment of riches coming out of the region. We have the new four-piece Riastrad with us. How are you guys doing today?
Great. How are you?
Doing
Good.
great, doing great. I'm going to ask you guys to introduce yourselves and what you do in the band in a second, but I just want to call out number one. I love the record. It's self-titled record that drops on November 6th. People will probably be listening to this a couple days afterwards. But I am going to do a little promotion for Bandcamp Friday tomorrow to make sure everybody goes and grabs the digital at least. Love the record. Um, I think people are going to love the record. And as much doom and stoner rock is out there, the traditional doom stuff that I'm hearing from bands like you, I think I'm not hearing it as much anymore. I think people are going a little in all sorts of different directions. I get very excited when I get to hear like this traditional doom with the big voice and the riffs and everything else. So I'm going to
Oh, good.
stop there and I'm going to ask you guys to say hello and introduce yourselves and what you guys do in the band, if you don't mind.
Sure. Go ahead, Paige.
I'm Paige, vocals.
Paige.
Lance, drums.
Todd. I play bass.
And I'm Damion. I'm the guitarist.
Very nice to meet you guys. And think a lot of people are going to be pumped for this record. When I listen to it, obviously, some of the big, kind of influences that you might hear around your Sabbath stuff and maybe some of the more traditional doom records. Um, to me, like I mentioned, last year there were a few good doom records that were along the traditional lines. There's a band called Cattle Mass that I love, and the new Goya record was great, and the Wood Witch record out of Virginia, a very underrated band. But I love kind of the sound and the tone that you guys generate from this record. Tell us a little bit about the album for those people who might not have heard it and maybe only heard that single. What to expect when this drops tomorrow, as we're speaking.
Well, I think like yeah, traditional doom does uh is a good way to think of it. I do think people will like hearing that might be a little bit surprised because I do think we also incorporate a lot of our various influences at the same time. Although as like, you know, being the only guitarist and the guitar, uh yeah, that's my initial influences would be like Sabbath, Zeppelin, of course, all those older bands. Uh After one of our shows, it was funny because somebody actually was the guitarist from a band called Time Rift here in Portland that you may have heard of.
Yep.
He came up and he was like, "Oh, I hear a lot of Pentagram," and which I like Pentagram, but I hadn't really considered that. So then I went back and listened to their first album. I was like, "Oh, okay, I can hear where he would hear that." But it wasn't like a conscious thing on my part to be like, "Oh, I want to write some old Pentagram type riffs." Um, but yeah, I think also there's like other things like there's one song that has like a thrashier part in it. Um so that might catch people by surprise. We have one song that starts off fairly jazzy. Um so I'm really, really proud of what we were able to put together for our first album and how everything turned out. And we had a great experience in the studio with Steven from the guitar. He's one of the guitarists in Tar Pit, and he
Oh,
recorded.
that record, that Tar Pit record.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And then through an artist who I was able to lay some guitar tracks down for, I was able to meet Billy Anderson, and he was kind enough to do the mastering for us. So that was great. And yeah, I'm really proud of how everything turned out.
Yeah. I will tell you that it's a stacked week this week coming out on Friday, but you guys are hanging in there with bands like I know nobody thinks about what other albums are coming out in the week that
Right.
you're dropping a record, right? But like there's like the Hermano live record, and there's the band a band from Portland, Belonging, is doing a split that's coming out. Jack Harlan and the Dead Crows. Um, Not for nothing, but I've been listening to your album a little bit more than all those other ones. It's great, and it's on pretty consistent repeat for me. Um, Two of the tracks that stand out to me, I think Ritual Fire is one of
Oh,
them. I was, if anyone asked my opinion, I would say that might be a good choice for a second single. Love that song. Is that the one where you would call it the thrashier side of things? Because it does kind of rip it up.
yeah, there's a section in there with when the guitar solo eventually comes in um that definitely harkens back to the guitar part there. It goes back to, when I was first learning guitar around 14, 15. It was, the years of thrash. And, my friend Jared, who we took guitar lessons with the same teacher, and, we would drive together to lessons on Saturday. Like, that's mainly what we were listening to back and forth to guitar lessons. And, you know, that was our goal. He was already well on his way of becoming a shredder, but like, I was, like wanting to, learn to play like, Hammond, Martin Friedman, like all those guys at that time. Never really got there, but it's definitely still an influence, and things like something from my youth that I'll go back to and listen. But we were talking about if we were to ever do a video, like we were thinking of that song, to do one for, because we all love that song.
It's killer. That right now is the one that jumps out to me the most. Paige, your voice is just it just kind of takes over things in the best possible way. And it's impossible not to turn on this record and like focus on what you're doing vocally. And in obviously that is the biggest possible compliment that I could. It's just amazing.
Thank you.
Where do you come from vocally? Like, is there, have you been doing this kind of music for a while? Is there influences in your voice, in your vocal style that you would call out?
Yeah. I mean, inspirations for this project have definitely majorly stemmed from Ann Wilson and Grace Slick. Definitely Bobby Liebling. I think that's where a lot of people are getting the pentagram influence, because there's definitely heavy influence there. Same with like Scott Weinrich. Yeah, Dio, Ozzy, all the classics. Is kind of just hard to avoid being inspired by them. But yeah.
It's your voice. It fits perfectly with the music that you guys are doing, and just this big gigantic sound. If we could only get a viral moment like Bobby has had over the last year or so, it's
Yeah. Yeah, I'll plant someone to hand me their underwear. Our next.
I've been lucky enough to have Wino on the show twice now, and
Oh, cool.
yeah, he's a very cool guy. I was a little intimidated to talk to him, even the second time, knowing him a little bit, knowing the little we talked. But just such a cool, down to earth guy, and yeah, I can, as I'm listening to it, I can hear some of the obsessed type stuff that
But
probably
The Obsessed is one of my favorites, and yeah, like to channel that kind of I don't know, like low end kind of energy.
there's the last time I talked to Wino, he had his wife on because they just did a project called Ritual Arcana, which is killer. Like I think that you guys are like kind of kindred spirits, I think, with that record if you haven't heard it. Um, but it was just funny to see Wino like have his wife tell him, "Please don't tell the story about shooting the gun in her house." Like it was a wonderful dynamic. I'm like, this is why I do this show. It's just wonderful. I want to talk to the rhythm section, especially because there's a guy with a Clutch shirt on back there, and I I love Clutch, probably a top 5 band for me, and I think the rhythm section of Clutch is actually somehow underrated. When you got Neil and you got Tim doing their things, and then you got this rhythm section that just kinda hold it all together, but if you watch them and listen to them as individuals, it's like virtuoso. Have you guys played together before? Do you have like are you building this chemistry new with this band, or how have you guys approached this project from a rhythm section standpoint?
Well, this was actually a band with a couple different members beforehand, and I have been friends with the drummer Lance here since I was a teenager, and I'm in my 50s now, and so we've known each other a long time, and we've jammed in some other little projects in the past, and
Or Lust for Glory together.
yeah, oh, that's right. Yeah, we were in a band called Lust for Glory, and another little project that we did that never really made it off the ground, but it was still fun to play. Um, but anyways, this band was originally established beforehand, and then
many years ago.
and then it kind of disbanded, and then years later they decided to bring it back together. Lance just called me up and kind of pulled me in. I really actually didn't know what I was getting myself into, to be honest. He just asked me if I wanted to come over to his house and jam on some songs. And, honestly, I thought it was just going to be me and Lance, the drummer, just me laying down some bass to some drums. And then it turned out to be kind of a impromptu audition for this band.
Yes.
Surprise. Well, you got the
Yeah.
gig, so it must have went well, right?
Yeah.
Good. It's worked into like our own kind of sound now.
And
Yeah, I mean, they already had songs established, so it was kind of easy for me. I just had to kind of learn the songs, that they already had established, and so yeah, I kind of took it from there.
Now Todd's written a lot of our
Yeah.
songs and some of my favorites even.
oh, cool.
And
Excellent.
that's been great for me too, is feeling sort of a weight off of my shoulders, is feeling like I always felt like I had to be the songwriter as the guitarist, but it's been great having someone to like also provide ideas. But now more and more we're talking collaboratively,
Yeah.
as a songwriting team, and that's been awesome.
Very cool. And so the 4 of you play out, because I'm looking at the Bandcamp page and it says former members, but this is the 4 of you are on this album, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Excellent.
That was that was back in 2010 to like 2013 or so, 2011 to 2013 with Ryan and Justin, and we had put out like a 3-song EP with them. And when we brought Todd and Paige into the band in 2023, like late 2023, it was like, it had been so long and not many people had really heard that EP anyway. So, we told Paige, go ahead and, write your own lyrics. We're going to reuse the music for the 3 songs that we already had, and we'll, revamp them and re-record them. And, and it's been great. Like, especially with Paige's voice, like, Lance and I know how to play together. We did this band back in that time period, so we already had a musical relationship. And so then, bringing in Paige, whose voice can sit on top of everything, whereas the only thing I always kind of felt previously was that with Ryan's voice being a little bit lower, it just kind of sat too much in with
Ryan's a
everything.
great singer, though.
Yeah, great singer. That's not to take anything away from him, you know. But I always kind of thought in hindsight after we broke up, like, I wish we had somebody whose voice could kind of sit above everything, you know, and be more out front in that way. And so that's, I mean, the second I heard Paige, you know, that first, we have a mutual friend, and he was the one who suggested I give her a call. And so when I said we were looking for a singer, and he was like, "Oh, you gotta talk to my friend Paige." And so when she came in and started singing, I was like, "Yeah,
There it is.
that's what
Yeah.
I envisioned," you know. And then, you know, Todd is a great bassist and can do runs and, you know, everything I wanted in a bassist, you know, not somebody who's just going to, you know, mimic the guitar, which, you know, works in a lot of situations. And you want that to provide that heaviness, but also a bassist who can play around the chords and do bass runs so it's more interesting and providing more of a texture, you know. So I, you know, once we got it all together, I was like, sweet, this is exactly what I always wanted, you know.
And you can, I mean, there's a lot of records that come through as doing the Doom charts thing and promos and everything else that comes through. And there are a lot of bands who play heavy music. And sometimes it's hard to distinguish one between the other unless you really pay attention. But like, adding Paige to this mix, and I'm sorry I'm gushing over your voice, but it makes you actually like turn your head and like what just happened. And I love the Nancy Wilson, the Ann Wilson comparison. Like the heart is, I think they started to, like, in the 90s, people started to understand how important heart was, like in grunge and stuff like that. And then I think people stopped a little bit, and maybe now it's coming back of how important heart was in the realm of heavy music. Um, are you specifically a Heart fan, or the voice, or how do they influence you?
Yeah, I'm a fan. Yeah. I think Dreamboat Annie was probably one of the first records that I got in high school, and I liked it. And so, yeah, I'm a fan of Heart.
Yeah,
I know, like, I'm sure Ann Wilson and maybe even Nancy have like side projects and stuff. I can't say I've really dived super deep into their careers, but yeah.
no, you don't have to, because all you have to do is hear those hits and know that nobody can sing like that woman. I think
Yeah.
the thing that, and I always forget which song it is. It's like one of my favorite things ever, but song names don't stick with me. But there's an EP by Alice in Chains where she sings background on it, and it's like, oh my God, you are an inhuman. Like, I don't know where this is all coming from. So, but that's the kind of voice that I get from you, where you hear them sing, you turn and look, and that's the vibe I got when I was listening to this record. So, just love the way that came together. Um, I was asking if you guys all played on the record because I didn't want to compliment Lance's drumming if it wasn't him. But I do want to compliment your drumming, Lance. And I think the drum sound is also what I'm hearing that I really dig. Do you have, I guess, when you recorded, when you mixed it, and it was mastered, are you guys kind of giving feedback on how you want the instruments to sound, and specifically like even down to the bass and drums, or how does that work?
Yeah, I mean, definitely the drums tunes kind of like to fit in the mix a little better than I would in a live situation. And but yeah, all the sounds we sat around and talked about everything and went over it all. And yeah,
I mean, one of the songs we changed the drums the day before we recorded it.
Yeah.
Just me and Lance talking. We happen to be roommates too, so you know we're able to interact more than the rest of the band as a whole. But
it wasn't emotional at all.
no, and it wasn't. It was just
It was fucking emotional.
Yeah.
but
Absolute bullshit. But
I think the end
it sounds better though.
Yes, result was much better than what was previously going on with particular song.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the fact that you guys worked that out and you're all sitting in the same room, I guess, you can be somewhat democratic in your decision making here. And it sounds like maybe from Damon, from your point of view, the band has become more of a band per se, rather than kind of you leading the way with players
Absolutely.
that you're working with, right? Is that kind of what you're leaning towards at this point?
Yeah, I don't want to be a dictator. I, I've always, since I was a kid, admired Jimmy Page for being that leader of Led Zeppelin and you know, being the producer and knowing what he wants and this and that. And I try to, bring sort of a vision to everyone, but I want it to be a collaboration. I don't want to be the guy sitting there going like, no, you need to do this, or, you know, uh, you need to do this, or I just remember hearing stories of bands, one very, very huge band that I'm sure we all can think of who for a long time there were two members of that band. I don't, Metallica, but would dictate, no, that guitar solo has to be like this, or this has to be, and man, I just remember hearing those stories growing up and being like, why would you want to be in a band like that?
Yeah.
Like,
And
why?
we're gonna turn the bass off completely on probably
Yeah,
their
yeah,
best record and just kind of not make it as good as it could be. Yeah. So I love that. The other three members of the band will say you're not a dictator, right? They'll say that you're very easygoing.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Just want to
Come
make
from
sure.
the attitude and being able to deal with each other. So we
Yeah.
all should be able to come to each other at any point and be able to say whatever it is so that we can improve,
Mhm.
what we're doing. And,
Yeah.
it's not like we're making money or there's no, we're doing this out of art and out of
Right.
fun and love, so there's no point in beating around the bush or, anything else, so it's fine if someone wants to come up, hey, if you want to change the drum part while we're in the fucking studio, it's fine with me. I'm fine with it. Yeah. No. And I also really don't care. We need to keep doing this, but it's like, but I might rib you later and be like, yeah, 3 fucking extra days in the studio. Luckily, it didn't work out that way. So I cranked it out. It was a pretty simple adjustment. I mean, it was playing simpler.
Yeah.
Is basically the adjustment that was made a couple times just because, drummers tend to overplay, and it's good to be able to pull back a little. So,
You're the second drummer to actually say that in an interview I've done this week. I was talking to Steven in the band New Dawn Fades, and he's like, drummers, he was just talking about how he went to watch New Dawn Fades play before he was in the band, and he just sat there and he's like, I can do better than that. And then, next thing you know, he was in the band. He's like, drummer's going to be drumming. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. That's an interesting point of view.
Right.
I have a show with Jay from the band Holy Roller, and it's just I'm getting a lot of drummer experience lately, and it's great. It's an interesting point of view from the band, especially when the drummers are so involved in everything that's going on, or at least a little bit involved, and they're not just like hired guns coming in to lay down tracks after the fact, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And as a songwriter, I've never understood that attitude of the drummer just provides. I've also played the drums in bands, so uh, my attitude is Lance composes his part. He's as much a part of the songwriting process as everyone else. So I've never understood that attitude, of many bands where it's like, well, the drummer is just providing a beat, so he's not really a songwriter. Well, then you play the drums.
Yeah.
You know what?
Yeah.
What? I don't get that. So,
I interviewed the band Hibernaut last night from Salt Lake City, and they have a drummer, Zach, who's from Portland. He was in Portland. The other guys were in Salt Lake City. I don't know if you know him, but he it was very much like that. Like the guys were like looking at him as like the driving force in like how some of the songs are being structured, and like the drums were just like this driving force in these songs. So it was actually pretty cool to see that band dynamic there. I do want to mention the song Forms of Flesh also. And that's probably my other favorite song. And it could be that because, and this might be Paige's voice or it might be the riff, but man, sounds like my favorite Sabbath song in the best possible way. Do you know which song, what song I would call out here?
Let's see.
I'm not trying to stump you, but I'm just wondering if I'm just hearing something in my own head. It's probably me hearing it in my head, but my favorite Sabbath song is Supernaut, and that's what I hear in Paige's vocals, in the best possible way. I hear kind of that higher inflection point during a certain part of the song, and I'm like, oh, candy, because that to me, it's my favorite Sabbath song and probably my favorite cover song of all time. When Nine Inch Nails and Ministry did a cover of that, it just
Yep. I played in an industrial band in college who covered that cover. Like, so we played it the way 1000 Homo DJs played it. Yeah.
Just amazing stuff. And the vocals on that too, a different kind of approach than Ozzy took on Supernaut, but there's two versions where Al sings and Trent sings, but they're both just amazing stuff. But it's funny that I heard that like right off the bat, and you guys are like, well, I don't know, which Sabbath song might that be? Which is kind of cool, I think. Yeah, I didn't think you did it on purpose, but I also I think subconsciously, as a non-musician, I just would assume that just some of this stuff is like in your veins and just winds up in your songs, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
My whole much of my learning guitar was just by ear, playing along to those albums, trying to figure out what was going on. I think the first song I ever learned on guitar was Iron Man, because it's a very simple riff. And Jared, my friend who got me interested in playing guitar, he had been playing since he was 10, and he showed me how to play that, at his house. And so from then on, it was like any Sabbath I could get at that time.
There will be times I'm listening to, I don't know, any Doom record again, and just in my car driving along, I'm like, oh, that's where I got that. Nice.
Right.
It's fair. I mean, because everybody has no choice at this point but to leverage the influences that are out there. I mean, you can't. There's not a lot of things that won't sound like something at some point, and I don't even want that. The things that sound like something that that was like Lou Reed trying Metal Machine music. Nobody wants to hear doors slamming and shit like that, right? They want to hear what they like in just other forms. So yeah, it's interesting that you say that you hear kind of, maybe that's where I picked some of that stuff up from. I took guitar lessons early on, and I think if I wrote guitar parts at this point, it would just be Smoke on the Water. Like that would be it. It would just be Smoke on the Water and nothing else, because that's as far as I got in my guitar lesson, and just fingers don't work that way. Which is why I'm so in awe of bands like you guys who can play instruments and do these things and put together songs, and why I think I love it so much. I want to talk more about the release of this record again. Comes out self-titled, comes out February 6th, where we're talking, you guys will probably see a reel about this on Bandcamp Friday, so go check this out. Are you planning any physical media release or anything to go along with the digital release at some point?
Yeah, we're working on figuring out who we're gonna, go with in terms of pressing vinyl and, printing up some CDs and stuff like that. We definitely want to have that for people who, I would love to have a copy myself. So, it just, we know that there's definitely more and more of a vinyl culture again. It's making another resurgence, and I would love, as somebody who grew up with vinyl, I would love to be able to look at, this is the album we made, and even just for myself. But I would love to be able to get that out for people.
The physical media portion of this, of like the world today, I think it's a double-edged sword, right? You have to spend the money to get that, but like when, given that musicians don't make money doing anything except physical media, it almost becomes like if you want to break even in some capacity, this is something that you have to do. Also, it's very cool, I think, based on musicians I talk to, just to have that product of your own thing in your hand and be able to, just have it and know that it exists. Um, uh, but also like it's getting a little out of control with the vinyl. Like I mentioned Alice in Chains earlier, and like they had like 14 different versions of the repress of the
Oh,
self-titled record. I'm like, how do I
yeah.
wind up with like 4 colors of this at this point?
Right.
What do I do?
Yeah.
But that's my own sickness that I have around vinyl collecting. I want to ask about Portland and the scene in general. I've talked to a ton of bands. Another band from that I don't exactly know how to pronounce the name, but I'm talking to soon. It's either Spina or Spina. And as a guy whose last name is pronounced wrong all the time, I feel bad if I'm saying it wrong. They have an EP coming out tomorrow as well. Very cool stuff. I happen to be looking on your Instagram and talked to a band called Campfighter.
Yeah.
And Dick Shivers, a friend of mine now via Instagram, responded and mentioned, he was very excited to see you guys live. What's it like out there in the Portland scene? It just seems like you just turn the corner and there's another like amazing heavy rock band just there at this point.
It's great. It's great to be able to have that support of other bands who are, playing within the genre you play, and be able to make those contacts and those friendships and support one another. We're good friends with the band Slow Goat, who, that I went the other night. They played at a pizza shop here the other night, and I went to that, and it was great. So, they
The,
they really supportive of us. Campfighter, we've played with a number of times, and they've always been really supportive, and uh, great to play with. And Ravine, hopefully, we're going to actually. I just talked to those guys the other day, and it looks like we're looking at maybe in the fall being able to get a show together with them, because they're pretty booked for the next couple months. So we're looking at like September, something like that. Um, yeah, it's just it's great to be in a city where you have that support and
yeah.
that sort of scene.
Mhm.
Um,
It's also great how many venues and
yeah,
options there are where you could be playing on a big stage and you could be seeing like bands that have played on huge stages playing in a small room. And I think like when touring bands come in, there's such a wide selection of local bands to pick from that you do get to see some of your friends and favorite like local bands playing with like huge bands. And I think that's something that's super cool is that this Portland is such a hub for music. It's like it has its own industry here,
It's
and
awesome.
it's hard to infiltrate or anything. It's really everyone's really accepting and welcoming, and I think it's a very special place for music.
I was going to mention Slow Goat and Shrew is I've had Shrew on the show, Selena and Rosie being the vocalist in Slow Goat. I'm love her voice too, and I'm hoping for some new Slow Goat stuff soon. Rosie, if you're listening, let's get you guys on the show.
May or may not have a group chat called Geezer Slutler. That's all I'll say.
Oh, that's wonderful. And the dudes in Ravine and Skulldozer also,
yeah,
couple different versions of those guys. I've had them on the show too. Just great dudes and so heavy. Ravine's just
yeah. We
so
just played Bulldozer. We
okay,
just played
cool.
like 2 weeks ago. Yeah, they were great. They were great. Them and Viral Tyrant and Shoot.
Milton from
Milton.
Eugene.
Thank you. Yeah, Milton from Eugene.
Oh, I don't know Milton. I'm gonna have to check
Or-
Milton
yeah.
out as I type this into Bandcamp. Yeah, it's just amazing. And I joke that like half the bands I talk to are from Portland, but I talk to so many, and it's the bands that I bring on the show are the bands that I dig and listen to and enjoy, and just the scene is so rich. I'm seeing a lot of that in North Carolina too, on this coast. Like there's a ton of really cool stuff happening in that scene as well. So yeah, just to summarize, first of all, thank you very much for doing this. Really, really appreciate you guys coming to talk to me. And I just want to congratulate you on the record because it's amazing. I think people are going to really, really dig it. I think we have to just make sure people hear it. There's a lot going on this Friday, so we have to make sure that everybody gets to hear this, and everybody knows that it's happening, because I think there's a yearning for more of this. Again, traditional doom. I use that air quotes because, like you said, there's more going on there. But to what you guys have going on, but like this is going to be candy for people who listen to this show and who are into heavy underground music stuff. So, congratulations on this, Riastrad. All four of you, thank you for joining. Sorry for our technical issues and joining, but it's been awesome, and thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Thanks, man.